The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of the never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 40th episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable Wartime Edition. This week, we have hosts Greg from Rivet, Dave from Din.social, Satoshi Sean, entrepreneur and friend of everyone, and I'm Joe, architect and founder of Dragonchain. Quick update on the WBRT layer ownership tokens. This show is a DAO. I don't know if it's the first show that is a DAO, but it's a DAO. So you can get layer ownership tokens by either being a host or providing topics or providing themes or providing questions during the show every week. You guys get to decide. So this week, each host from last week will receive 133 lot, which are individual layer tokens. Every topic contributor will receive 33 lot. The ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and governance votes. We can go straight into, I have an update on the governance issues. So the March theme is resolved. The top 5 selected were, nobody voted on freestyle. Sorry. The top 5 selected were blockchain adding to our quality of life, entertainment, layer 2 zero knowledge roll-up solutions, decentralized blockchain social media platforms, and future NFT use cases. So there are 5 weeks next month. That's a really good lineup. I mean, it's like great choices. I think I didn't even pick the top one, so I like that. It actually was a pretty good distribution. So and as a reminder, if your theme is used in one of these, that is, if you were the one that proposed one of these themes, you will also receive lot based upon the total views. We just had a governance vote, I think it was last week, maybe a week or two ago, that set that. So it's a good thing. So whoever provided those themes will also get lot tokens for that week. So first up, before we get into anything else, current events.
I was just thinking when you were introducing the show, Joe, I was thinking, the 4 people that we have right now doing current events today, it's kind of interesting. There's a lot going on in the world, and it's all,
What are you talking about? There's nothing going on.
Nothing ever happened.
I've also read that. Not for another 2 weeks, at least. But, yeah, it's crazy.
Or do we even know if
involved.
there's anything going on? Or are we just being shown what we'd like to be led to believe is going on?
Yeah, well, this is actually just maintenance on the matrix that they're working on. So
yeah, it could be a Truman Show thing. It could be like, we look at things through a screen, so it could be generated for our eyeballs. It all could just be a simulation.
Let's
that
listen.
Way.
Anything. So we have war, Ukraine, Russia, potential war with Taiwan, China, and we have things like, interesting in our world, Elon actually explicitly saying that he is building a case against the SEC.
Yeah, I saw that I think yesterday.
I've theorized for quite a while, I guess, years now, that the Doge thing was entirely a troll, that he wanted to get subpoenas, that he was trying to pump up something to profit, and he doesn't actually hold it. And
I kind of thought that was a wild theory when you first said it, but now I
almost guarantee it. Because it's like he would cost them a ton of money. It would be extremely easy and cheap to deliver, and they wouldn't believe him. So they would then have to go further.
He has a small amount of Doge, though, and then Tesla accepts it in their gift shop. or whatever, you know. So
You
they
know,
I've always had a hard time.
Dave saying that we live our lives through screens is really, it's freaky how like in my mind you guys are. Like I'll think about something while I'm taking a crap, 2 days before the show, and as soon as we come on, one of you just like, you know what, and I'm like, how did you know I was thinking about that? But here in Texas, yesterday or the day before, it's 80 degrees, and it was gorgeous.
Lovely.
But on my screen, it kept saying that there's a huge winter storm and we're all gonna freeze and blah. And then I went yesterday was family night, and the stores were sold out of everything. There was only like milk's usually like $2 a gallon here, $2.50, but they only had like the ultra organic $8 milk that was left. There was no bread. The pasta's gone. The shelves were literally everyone's panic buying on this beautiful 80-degree day because their screens are telling them, oh, everyone's gonna die in like 24 hours.
I noticed something
That is so
similar in
apropos
Florida
to the moment.
whenever we had the most recent, well, the gas shortage, the pipeline attack, that kind of thing. Like we had a shortage for like 2 days because everyone went and filled up 12 gas tanks because they saw on TV that they should probably prepare. But like
Yeah.
looking back, it's likely that you wouldn't have even noticed if it hadn't
And
been
I'm
like
guilty of that.
everybody
I
freak
told all
out.
my kids, you go fill your tank every day, whether you drive 10 miles or 100 miles, you fill that tank because gas is just going to go up every day, a couple pennies. So if you wait like 2 weeks to fill it up, it's going to just cost more. Just keep it full, which I guess is more preventative, but we really do. We ignore our own surroundings and we just listen to the screen so much. And now I think with echo chambers, we literally choose who we instead of just like, it sounds weird to do your own research by like just looking around you, but instead of basically doing that and just getting out there and living life, we literally create the information that comes in on our screens so that it's comfortable for us, and then that's what we watch.
Right. I mean, and people don't realize how personalized it can be. There can be 6 billion different variants of the same news article. Not that not. I mean, it's not. That wouldn't be totally trivial to do, but it would be somewhat trivial to do, such that you get served a variant that fits you explicitly. In all likelihood, that's probably not what they're doing. They're probably doing something more like your demographic in your region, maybe in your town, maybe on your block, right? What's going to land the best with you as far as the response they want to get, which is more engagement, right?
And you make a good point, Greg, because everything is tailored for people, even if they don't want it to be, which is
Right.
weird. Because I think we work to make it, but then with social media and algorithms, it's literally you can't be open-minded. It's very tough. You have to work to be open-minded.
This is why I was talking about with, for example, Facebook's metaverse foray is like they think I said it before, but they think they know people really well. They think they can create like this great environment for people, and maybe they can for the type of person that is still on their platform. But like bubbling everyone creates people that are not how like humans normally naturally kind of are, right? So that version of what they're doing is based on what type of people they've created.
Well, and can you see some of the effects? Because you could even look in the real world at the effect of all the vaccine mandates and or the mask mandates, and the fact that of the organizations, most of them either very large organizations or public sector, the government, that those are the places that the mandates happen, right? That those are the places that they had the most power. It's like, we can just do this. We don't have to follow any rules. We don't have to worry about shareholders. We're just going to say, you have to have a vaccine. You have to wear masks. You have to be of you have to believe in these things. And the crazy thing, when it was going on, I was like, holy crap. I mean, I'll tell you, for somebody who is at least, liberty minded. I don't say I'm a libertarian, especially with a big L or anything like that, but liberty is more important than anything else.
I know you're a big L.
I used to be. I'm not.
You like chicks.
Anyway, ridiculous. So one way or another, the fact that they've purged anyone else. There's not going to be diversity in those organizations. So guess what? If you are outwardly liberty-seeking human, when you go to one of these organizations, they're going to say you're an a-hole. I don't. Yeah, you won't even get a vaccine, and that's dangerous and whatever else. And it's just like I think that's intentional. I think they basically were able to clear out any dissent inside of their own organizations. And any big company that you work with now is going to be only the people who would go along with something like that.
Foolish, right? This is why ultimately I have a lot of confidence in our space, and why I believe that our space is going to ultimately prevail, because we're not engaged in ideological purges, right? We're kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's more like an ideological merge, where the differences in opinion about just what kind of tools get to a solution of the betterment of humanity, right? The end result with these systems is sort of unified in that way. Like people on the hard left, plus like hard left anarchists and hard right libertarians, when it comes to crypto-based solutions, kind of look towards the same goal.
Yep.
And the means are the same.
Yep.
It's actually, to me, one of the most interesting things to say about this is like it provides a way for even people on the opposite ends of ideological spectra to work together.
Well, I think our space is not as bad, but there is still, there's always assholes in everywhere.
I'm reminded.
The world where people.
I think whatever we should do, is kind of like just a call, is to actively go out and seek opinions that are completely, contrary to what you feel comfortable in, and follow that person, listen to that person, and don't see them as an adversary, but look at the opinions again of people instead of looking at people.
And by the way, if they're the rational on the opinions that you disagree with that are they're not name calling, they're not doing because that's the poison that's usually out there.
That's something that I think a good way for you to know nowadays if you are an open-minded individual is that if your feed on Facebook or Twitter or wherever, you do get shocked every now and then by someone that you follow, because I think one of the biggest problems over the past few years, and the left especially, brought this up with Trump, that he's emboldened these far right and these people that were have these extreme views. They feel so confident they're picking up their tiki torches and running out there, and now they think they can get away with everything. And I think that really is true to a certain extent, because when you're constantly just your mindset and your view is supported, and everywhere you look, everyone agrees with you, you really do look at anyone else as just ridiculous and stupid. And I think that really gets people. That's where people get that, because we all say, how are people so angry and so holier than thou? And I think that's one of the biggest reasons for it, is
Everyone
because
thinks they're
constantly
in the majority.
given that
and the voices that get amplified are the most incendiary ones, right? I mean, you will not see a case in point, Joe Rogan, right? They're trying to cut him out of existence because all he does is go on and ask open-ended questions of people until they run out of things to talk about.
Yeah, they're starting to say that that's not what he does. They're like, he only has people that he agrees with. I don't
get it.
That he's creating the echo chamber. It's just ridiculous.
That's totally ridiculous.
If you who Cake is, the band, they are so not about music anymore.
Short skirt and a long jacket.
Yeah, they're so about. They're not about music. They're so. I mean, they're hateful. They really are. But I follow them because of I like their music, and then to see, like, it's a shock. So many things. Like, you can look at what Ted Nugent says. Whoa, and then you look at what they say, and they're so far on the other end of the spectrum it's such a wake up call, because so many people are like, yeah, man, we should take away the truckers' right to exist. And
that's what I was talking about recently.
Dogs. And there's people that agree with that. It's nuts, and that's another thing. Seeing Canadians come out against the truckers and against freedom.
Well, and I think we are being shown that kind of in puppet theater mode. I don't think that was the majority.
And a lot of it's
Canadians.
fake. A lot of it is fake.
Yeah.
But then there are real
they had
people,
created
and
the
that's-
impression that it was.
And that's not just dismissing it, because there are people that actually are following along with that, and they completely believe that's right.
Right.
Obviously, or there
We
wouldn't be.
just have to
police
wake
doing
up
what they're doing.
people from paying attention to just that and believing it. Like, I think one of my favorite parts about being one-time practicing Discordian was the adherence to one of the tenets, which was, Discordian is prohibited from believing anything he or she reads or hears. If you take that mindset that you can't believe anything you hear until you believe it, and not just believe it because someone shoots it at you, with text or audio.
Yeah, you have to take everything with a grain of salt now, no matter where it comes from.
Mhm.
Good. In fact, I'm less likely to go along with something that I agree with now, because I don't want to just jump into it, because it's so easy. If you're on 4chan much, you can see there's so much stuff. The good thing about it is you get info before you'll get it elsewhere, and you get better info typically before you get it elsewhere. But there is a tremendous amount of filtering that you have to do, and checking before you really know if something's true. Super interesting.
Right.
I was going to bring up something that was the most important thing that I think had happened this week until what happened this week, which was the Canadian, the letter from the wallet, the response from the Bitcoin wallet company.
I saw that.
Software
That was a
company.
blast.
Dude, that was beautiful. It was perfect. But the thing that was interesting to me is early days in crypto, we all knew what Bitcoin was, and it was back then. It was literally about this. It was software liberty, right? That's what it was. And
that's the cypherpunk point.
Yeah, and I think it was
cryptography will set you free.
Yep, and I think it was when Crete, I can't remember what they did. They froze bank accounts or something else. Bitcoin shot up to like $30 or something. I can't remember. It was a lot of money, and it was like, holy crap! It was because they were doing something, and this was the answer to what they were doing. And in this case, Canada, it isn't Crete. This is freaking Canada does this to their own citizens. They go and try to seize money from that company, and they do all these crazy things, and it led to all of these immediate points to wake people up that have been there forever. Because I think I'll tell you, most of the normal people in the world, when they hear about Bitcoin, even today, will at least as of before, think, well, it's a financial thing. It's like a stock. You can buy Bitcoin, but I don't understand it, and it's crazy, and it's bunch of hackers. It's not for me. All of a sudden, you see normal people being affected by their own government that you would have never. This is supposed to be a Western,
right? I mean,
and
now we have to basically call it, like the Trudeau ban, pretty much.
Right, and
is in charge of Canada.
And you have senators retweeting it, and you have people saying this is beautiful. And I think that a lot of people will get it from that to say, oh, now I understand why I would want that as a normal person, right? That I would either want to give someone something and want to make sure it gets to them, and not because it's stolen from both sides, or if I need to take money and the government says, no, you don't believe in XYZ, so you can't have a bank account anymore. All of a sudden, this is why it matters to me. And that was
they imported all those rules. They imported all those rules. When they got rid of the emergency declaration, they declared the end of Trudeauistan, and they returned to Canada allegedly. But
I don't know if it was you, Greg, but someone I read posted that this is like a serious thing. No one argues with that. It's an Emergencies Act.
Yeah,
and the emergency
one that they didn't use during really legitimate emergencies.
But that's the thing.
While
What
we're
is
talking
the
about
emergency?
this, can I bring up something on the screen?
What is the emergency? The emergency is that there's people that disagree with what the government says. That's literally the emergency. When you just break it down and ask, well, what is the emergency that requires this monumental act? And that's what it is. That's all it is. And that is like a huge punch in the face.
Right, and
that, by the way,
Ottawa hashtag #OttNews is blurring basically what, like that's totalitarian, like live totalitarian overstatements right there.
So if you're watching or if you're listening and not watching, I just pulled up a tweet real quick from the Ottawa Police that says, if you are involved in this protest, we will actively look to identify you and follow up with financial sanctions and criminal charges. And that scared me a little bit, enough to save it to eternal.
They've hit a single mother with it. I read a story the other day about a single mother who donated $50, who is now her accounts are frozen, and she's being investigated.
Right, and that's what it's saying. Like, if you're involved, there were people bringing food to the truckers. There were people cooking meals for them. There were people, like delivering fuel so that they could stay warm and run their trucks at night. So I'll tell you,
it's literal humanitarian aid.
Yeah, all of the Western democracies have some form of what we have, which we know most about, which is the Patriot Act, and that's the intent. That all they have to do, they aren't willing to call. This was an annoyance of the right, that they weren't willing to call terrorists, but they're fully willing to call citizens terrorists when it's convenient to them to say, oh, you're doing some protest. Is like, oh, you can burn down cities as long as it's the right reason, but if you're going to drive trucks in and clog up our environment and honk, we're going to call you a terrorist and put you in prison. Like the leader of that, they're going to try to get her with 20 years in prison.
Yeah, right. And that's what I was talking a little bit about on Coffee. It was either this week, I think it was this week. It was just that, it seems so obvious that different demographics of people who are siloed off to themselves are like being influenced to. It just doesn't make any sense whenever you support something fully with every ounce of your being 1 month, and then a few months later you're completely against it when it's like not the people you like. And it seems to be happening on both the left and the right, where it's, you talked about how you can burn down buildings if it's for the right cause or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I saw that argument there. They tried to protest peacefully, and it's that didn't work. So yeah, they got to step it up. What do you expect them to do? That was at least the excuse made, that kind of thing. But those same people are like now saying, oh, these sons of bitches, they are evil and awful, and they are like, just screwing up everyone's lives, and they're causing all of this damage by blocking the roads. It's the same people that are saying both of those things. And the opposite.
And Ottawa is composed mostly of government workers. All they were doing was disrupting the government.
Yeah. I think there's so many reasons that down the road when history is explaining this, there's so many reasons why it's so perfect that it's Canada. It's so perfect that it's these polite. Yeah. It's the most polite country. It's the most. Yeah. It's the most. It's the biggest littlest Western power there is. There's so many reasons why it's perfect, because it's a wake up call to everyone, because it's Canada. It's not even, I think, New Zealand. It's not big enough. Maybe Australia, but still Australia. It's not quite as big enough. When you think about Canada, when you talk about Canada, it's one of the big ones. So say if it can happen there's no way you could say it couldn't happen somewhere else.
And can I I'm gonna pull something down. I want to show it if I can, but there's something that I read that's like very how do I say this? Probably what I would say that I is probably the most important point to be made about this. And here, let me get it shared here. Sorry, it was on a different. It was not accessible to this account, so I'm going to pull it up here. So this is a screenshot from an anon on 4chan. So take it for what it is. It's just some normal person, right? But I'm 100% sure that anyone advocating for violence is either retarded or a glowy, right? And a fan. And this was, by the way, a week ago. This was before all of the stuff going on with Russia. This is all about the Canadian protest, right? I'm 100% sure that police will take any excuse to kick the shit out of someone using a tiny amount of anything they could to be spun as violence. 100% sure they'll go as far as arresting people for speaking of violence, even online. This is before they arrested the leaders and everything else. This is the part that's important, though. I'm also 100% sure that violently suppressing nationwide protest without resolving any of the underlying issues that caused it, while proving to people that peaceful protests are not only ineffective, but will have the exact same repercussions as violent ones. In fact, the repercussions are worse than violent ones. If you joined BLM and burnt down your own city, you wouldn't be going to prison. You'd be bailed out by a celebrity, right? Is going to significantly increase the risk of violence occurring at some point in the future.
It's an interesting
This is
point.
the risk. This is how the world works. And that's what's going to happen because people realize, oh, okay, we can't be nonviolent, so screw this whole thing. We're going to be violent. That's what's going to happen.
It's even worse when you are led by a guy who pretends you don't exist, or that what happened wasn't what it was. Like, I don't know if you guys also saw his quote when Canada committed to sending in or committed to sanctions on Russia. He said this. He said, Russia's flagrant disregard for the independence of a sovereign nation is a serious threat to security and stability in the region and around the world. We are taking these actions today in a stand against authoritarianism.
Yeah.
What? Out of the mouth of fucking Justin Trudeau, literally probably right after a press conference where he talked about sanctions being continued despite the fact that the Emergency Powers Act was going to be eradicated. Like,
it's crazy.
I mean,
anyway.
Just one thing like that. This guy is just like, he's kind of insane, and I think it's indicative of a broader trend that people aren't paying attention to yet. I think the one thing that Russia and the situation with the Canadian truckers has in common is actually cryptocurrency.
Well, that's what we were talking about the SWIFT system earlier, and coming off of that and the implications there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To be blunt and 100% honest, I was saying the same thing that guy was saying months ago when the verbiage used about the beginning of January, what happened at the Capitol was, insurrection, attempted coup, things like that. If it was true, if Trump would have stood up and said, "Hey, man, this is rigged. It's time. We're cleaning house." If everything happened like they said, even a handful of people with weapons, handful, like 100 out of all those thousands of people, if they would have really stormed the Capitol, if they would have shot up the place, if they would have taken prisoner or killed our elected representatives that were there, if they would have called for the military to take sides, if any of the stuff they said was true, and if we did do a whole redo of the government, if Trump did take over, terrible for freedom, terrible for the United States. But in all honesty, there would be no inflation. Russia would not have invaded Ukraine. I would venture to say, and if you want to try to argue with me, fine. But everything that's messed up in the world, 80 to 90% of it would not have happened.
I won't argue with the first part of what you said. I am a little bit of a lefty, but even I agree with you that, I was watching with my wife live on C-SPAN during when people were, up on the Capitol and stuff. And I didn't know that was going on for a long time. When it was all over the news and there were people all over the front of the building and stuff like that, I was watching C-SPAN and they were carrying on business inside. And at one point there was somebody shouting, and my wife asked me what that was about. I used to live in D.C., so that I know that these sessions are open to the public typically, and people can come in and watch things. And I was like, oh, it's probably some protester. That happens a lot, shouting, protesting on something. No, security will get them. But then they stopped what they were doing and then they left. And I was like, oh, something's going on. And I flipped over to a camera angle that was in a hallway or something. And there were the people that got into the building were walking around like they were confused, like Like they were touring the place, like, what's going on here? Nobody's stopping them. Nobody's saying, they're just walking around. And then I flipped to something else and I started looking at videos from like that are going out on Twitter and stuff. And I see like literally I saved a video of a cop opening a barricade saying, come on in. You know what I mean? And so this is the progression of how I found out about it and how I learned about it. So I know that it did get out of hand. It did progress to a point where it was violent and it was deadly. But it didn't start that way, it didn't seem like. Somehow it seemed like it progressed that way without anybody pushing back. Now, this is my personal experience. You know what I mean? I don't ultimately know everything about what happened. I'm not on the committee investigating it, whatever, right? But it just seems like that could have been, if that happened the way that it did, with a bunch of basically unarmed people walking through the front door, you know, it's like, what's going on? What's going on there? What are we doing to uphold our system of government?
I will say
that's all I got to say.
I don't know. I don't know about the if he were to cross the Rubicon and go full Caesar, right? I mean that's a different question, because that, frankly, you could have had an outbreak of violence in that vacuum where all of a sudden, you know, we're focused internally, so, you know, everything else around the world doesn't have any care about our police actions, right? They just like, oh, they're busy, we're going to go do what we're going to do otherwise. But that said, the thing, and this has been common, anybody who lived during the Cold War, right? I grew up in the 80s, right? In like it's late 70s, early 80s, right? And the whole understanding back then, it was pretty obvious, is if you had weak leadership, stuff happens, and it's not good stuff. So as much as we like to be a polite Western democracy, sometimes you have to be rude. And, you know, in the world of social media, it's the first time we had a president who was tweeting and talking about the deep state, and that's rude. But at the same time, to Sean's point, this shit would not have happened if he were in office, you know. And in fact, the worst part of it isn't necessarily even that. If you look, there's a Pomp tweet that was perfect. It summed it up very, very well, that Putin is basically going to make a killing because we've effectively shut down all of our oil production. Why? Politics. And he's the big exporter now, which all of a sudden he's going to make a killing with this.
Well, I mean, but they shut down the pipeline project. Like, we're actually not getting the benefit of Russian energy.
Right.
That's the policy of that.
Weakness.
If you want to open that can up, Joe, the policy of that has pissed me off more than I don't even know what. The fact that our president, when we went from being the largest exporter of energy, and now that gas prices are through the roof and everything's so messed up, went on his knees and asked OPEC to please start producing more oil to lower prices. Please.
This is why.
Oh my God.
You guys want to know what frustrates me the most about all this?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that's why I have a strong belief that renewable energies are a national security issue, right? And Germany's taking that approach too. Energy itself, yes.
Energy itself. Security. That's why you should have
sovereign.
You should get rid of all the politics around that. You should get rid of the personalities, because if you take the personalities away and you just say, okay, let's pretend it wasn't Trump. Let's just look at the effect. We were self-sustaining production of energy, and we didn't even have nuclear turn. You know, it's like, imagine if we would have gotten nuclear. We would have had no.
I think nuclear is fantastic. I think we need more nuclear, especially now that we know how to make it safer. Not like we used to build plants, but the way that, you know, this is off topic, but I'm a big believer in the thorium nuclear reactors. Those things are a lot of potential there. Anyway, yeah. What were you saying, Greg?
So I would add to this that we literally have a laboratory under our control as the United States. Los Alamos, I think, is where this was. I'm not exactly sure. I should go back and double check that. But one of our labs had a femtosecond laser ignition event, where basically they got more energy out of the input energy in a test at whether or not they could make this particular pellet go into a sustainable state of fusion. We got ignition.
Have you seen the AI
the thing we didn't do? Yeah, the thing we did not do though was admit to ourselves that yes, we got that far, but now that we've achieved that, how are we not taking this and pushing that? Like, how is this clear, obvious solution to all of it not the single most funded priority we have?
Right. Some are, and right now with fusion, from what I understand, where we are is that we have applied. I say we, humans, in some whichever lab it was, have applied AI to controlling that reaction. Like the adjustments, the fine tuning adjustments had to happen so fast
Yep.
and calculated in real time that it just could. It wasn't feasible to sustain a reaction for so long.
Right.
So you
We're
have
on
this
the
big
cusp of
donut
this.
thing, and you have to keep the plasma in a donut shape in the middle. And they had a hard enough time doing that, but they've applied this new AI tool or whatever, where not
To
only can they
modulate the fields, right?
not only can they keep it contained in a certain shape, but they can also change the shape to a triangle. They can make it to two circles riding on top of each other, which they've never even thought of before. All kinds of stuff. So it's kind of there. I don't know how far off it is, but it's
Right.
there.
Wow.
Well, the difficulty that I have with it is that we are continuing to pretend like this doesn't exist. Like the ignition test where that happened, the only reason that it didn't produce a sustainable amount of electricity is because you couldn't rerun the laser on it. The laser is too inefficient. So it's an engineering effort to make a more efficient laser, and we're not fucking funding this.
You see, this is why the media can manipulate all of us or manipulate people in the world with personalities instead of dealing with, what are the real things that we should be doing to prevent violence. Right. It's like we all want peace, we all want prosperity. It's attainable. So anyway, that's
right. Well, I mean, if we want, frankly, if we want to be
on Greg's point, I remember it was this huge wake up for me when I was a kid. My friend was a grease monkey, and he we were like 19 or 20, and it was just after like high school, and he showed me this engine that he was trying to invent, and it was magnetic, and he was talking about how by using magnetic parts that it would reduce the friction of the parts to where an engine could last like forever. Mm-hmm. And the wear and tear and oil and everything would be just minimal. And I was like, oh, that's so awesome. It's gonna, cars will last. He goes, no, dude, I'm gonna sell it to the car makers, so they'll suppress it. They'll never let this be made because it'll, they'll lose all that money in selling people parts. And I was like, what? Why would anyone
resist electric cars for so long?
That's counterproductive to humanity. I literally had no clue that would be a real thing. It never entered my thought pattern at that time in my life
and stuff.
But and to what Dave said about energy being a national security issue, I think that, and to what Joe spoke about, a libertarian kind of point of view, everything could be a national security issue. And I think government is doing so much and so big. That's really what they really just need to worry about. Right. When you look at antibiotics, and that 97% of our antibiotics in the United States are controlled by China. It doesn't even matter if it's China. It could be England. It could be our best friend. If anyone can control 97% of your antibiotics, that is a national security issue.
To me, that's the real supply chain problem, is that, we get our antibiotics from China. We get our semiconductors from here. We get our fertilizer from Russia. We get, that kind of thing. And then if we're all at war, where the hell do we get it from?
but the war is being started by nation states. Like, if we were being honest right now with ourselves as a country, we'd be directing our military into our neighbors to the north to liberate those poor people. We really care about fucking authoritarianism. Instead, we're talking about going to Ukraine.
Right. Well, it makes you think, right?
In all likelihood, we pre-armed the separatists because
nobody wants to go to war.
Blade go.
Everyone wants to avoid war, right? Yet, we're all going to war. But nobody wants to go to war. But we're all going to war. That just it's hard for me to wrap my head around that sometimes.
It's absolutely insane. It's pure insanity.
Okay, we'll go.
So,
that was
current events.
Current events. That was 39. It's not bad. Okay, there's a lot to go over there. This week the theme is layer 1 blockchains. So speculation regarding layer 1 blockchains? Anything we want to cover before we get to questions, or we go straight to?
I was looking at the questions, and they're pretty decent. I mean, layer 1, maybe just what that means would be a good thing to cover, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
who wants to
absolutely.
define it? I have twisted views on it because I've been dealing with it for a long time. So what I
there's
say is not
nuance.
I actually
canon.
think I'll take a stab at this because I think Ethereum really nailed recently how like the Ethereum Foundation and its communications actually nailed how this can be thought of in a very useful way. Layer 1 blockchains are like an execution layer. They make they make a permanent final entry that can be referenced back to higher order elements of the blockchain, layer 2s and up. That that a thing that happened on one of the higher layers actually has occurred and it has finality. I really think that's probably a good way to think of them.
I like it as a settlement layer as well. That's the same thing kind of.
So the thing that I want to get you guys to help psychoanalyze me on this, because since 2014, we laid out what we have now, which is, and we used the semantics level, right? Where our execution layer was the private side and our proof layer was the public side. And I still think that, and here's the thing, forever people in Ethereum, dogmatic people in Ethereum, not everyone, of course, say that's horrible. It's private. People can control it. And like, that's not the point. This is an adoption. This is an adoption thing and a scalability thing where we think that a company doing real work will need to do this and have the proof on a bigger on Ethereum, Bitcoin, and everything else, and that the proof being the part. And my opinion is I think, although it's hard to interpret, is flip side of what you just described, because I think that the execution layer is the part that needs to scale. That the proof layer is the part that is it's a very, now in the cases where you have an anything where you would have handling of money in an escrow, that should be, if that's what you're talking about for execution, it's fairly limited.
When I'm talking about execution, I mean, I just mean simple finality of an event. Like it could be a bunch of different things that happen rolled up into one roll up, right? Mm-hmm. It could be what I would consider in your situation, right? The execution of a proof of that something happened.
That's exactly what we're doing. We're saying
literally
they're just thousands of things rolled up into one transaction that goes on Ethereum and goes on to Bitcoin, right?
So it's executing a confirmation of your execution.
Yeah.
Well, I think what Joe's describing is kind of like the same pyramid, the same concept, but with the pyramid flipped, kind of like when you flip the food pyramid kind of thing.
I think I think they're backwards on the focus, frankly, and that's, I'm only talking about the dogmatic people, which it's the same thing with Bitcoin, and the fact that they both disagree with each other is probably a decent thing to mention, but that, and nobody has to agree with each other, but my point is that you need to set the goals ahead of, let's fork this blockchain and then do the thing we want to do. What were we doing? Well, it doesn't quite fit, so we're going to make it work this way. Is not the way that you should be building software. That it's if you need scalability, and that when I'm talking scalability, at first we considered technical scalability. How many transactions can we run through the system versus. Now we really think that the bigger issue is economic scalability. That if your network cannot handle that number, it could technically handle it. You could all run them, but the fees will become so intense that you effectively, by definition, will curtail adoption. And what it leads to, that we've seen, is that people will, and you look at the Reddit initiative where they wanted to put that they limited everything. They limited the whole scope. It's going to be one layer only, and it's only going to be these things. And it wasn't the things that matter. It wasn't, what point is it if a moderator can adjust? We don't like that guy, so he shouldn't get the rewards he should get. Why wouldn't be an objective? Everything is on chain.
That's my theory about why Reddit did it the way they did. Was because I don't think Reddit really wanted cryptocurrency. I don't think they really wanted the finality and the provability of blockchain, just based on their past track record. I don't think that that's wanted in the same way that I don't think a lot of politicians want provable, verifiable elections and stuff like that. You know, there's just a lot of people that have gotten into
Yeah.
their position by not playing fair. That if we suddenly start playing fair, it's going to ruin people who cheat
Yeah.
for a living.
Yeah.
It's obvious. I mean, you got, senators out there like, we
probably
need
off
term
topic,
limits.
sorry.
I know I've been here for 37 years, but, we need term limits.
That's me though. We're
Yeah,
talking
and the
about
only thing
layer
you never
ones,
get
and
him to
I'm
vote
like,
for is a term limit
corruption.
that kicks in after he retires.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how that works. Yeah. I have thoughts on term limits too. Okay, so let's go to the first question though. Sorry, I just had to say that because it's important in this big subject, and this is super interesting to me because they at some point back when we started, they were never talking about layer twos. No, everything has to be on Ethereum.
Yeah.
Everything. Now all of a sudden, this is a good thing, and so I don't want to be overly critical because it's a good thing that they realize, oh, it can't scale. We know it can't either technically scale or economically scale, so we have to do a layer two. So now we allow a layer two, and we do ZK rollups, and we do anything we can do.
And I understand that because I came, if you remember, I came to before I met. Well, I shouldn't say it this way because it sounds like you converted me, but I was pretty dogmatic about Bitcoin until I realized that, in my opinion, like wanting to know how, coming from military, like, man, how can we use this in systems? How do we apply Bitcoin? Yeah, money's great, but how do we get companies to use it? How do we get real people to develop on it and stuff? And then I kind of saw how Dragonchain was working. I read the docs. That's the first thing I always go to whenever I study something new. I think I came into chat to ask some questions like, hey, is there a max supply? What's the deal with tokenomics? But looking at the engineering documentation, I was like, oh, okay, that's a way to use Bitcoin. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is Bitcoin. This is using Bitcoin. And I wasn't dogmatic in like, oh, you're not using it correctly. Because at the same time, even maximalists are making exceptions to their own dogma. Lightning Network is totally fine, right? That's allowed. But any other thing that's using Bitcoin on the side, not allowed. That's blasphemy. That's not healthy for the industry.
It's super interesting, and it's hard for me getting into discussions sometimes with Bitcoin maximalists. There was I'm not going to say who, but in a local Bitcoin meetup, one of the smartest people I know, and probably one of the most accomplished people I know in the Bitcoin world, almost certainly. And he had a hard time explaining how Lightning wasn't centralized. And it's like, it's fine that it's centralized. But he was like, oh, it can't be centralized. It's not centralized. And then when we got into it, it actually got down to the argument that, well, Bitcoin's not supposed to be cash. I'm like, how could it not supposed to be cash? That was crazy to me.
You mean the peer-to-peer electronic digital cash system?
Yeah, and I mentioned that, and it was kind of the end of the whole discussion, and it wasn't like it was implied. I mean, I always try not to be implied, but it was he wasn't angry or anything else, but it was obvious that it was like, it was like this broken part of the logic that
and I had a similar. I'm sorry, I cut you off a lot.
That's all right. It's all right.
I had a similar experience with like reading the features, especially right now today, reading the features of Monero, of the Monero project, is surprisingly like reading the Bitcoin white paper again, because they are taking. It's kind of like the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, right? You can read what was meant by what was written, look at our Constitution, right? In the time that it was written, subjective to the time it was written, with the vocabulary at the time and what was known and what was proven in the world, it was written a certain way. Now you can use the letter of the law to prove your case, or you can argue the spirit of the law. This is what was meant by that.
That's why
and this is kind of how I feel, with that dogmatic. You can be dogmatic about Bitcoin because I feel like Monero is Bitcoin. Bitcoin's Bitcoin, right? There's a lot of things that are Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is, to me, a philosophy. It's like the cypherpunk thing, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. It isn't the proof of concept that this can work and it can take down global regimes. The proof of concept will take down global regimes. That's amazing that the minimal viable product is that fucking powerful.
Yeah.
Right? But then to ignore any development beyond that is absurd.
Yeah.
That's my
Well, I mean, and it was done
opinion.
open source for a reason, right? Like that's the, people forget that the cypherpunk movement was bound up heavily in the free and open source movement, right? And a lot of these ideas only work if everybody has access to them and everybody can do what they want with them. It's not so much that Bitcoin can be the whole answer. It's that Bitcoin and all of the variations that are made on top of it are the answer.
And by the way,
Ross Ulbricht created dark markets as a concept. They did not go away when they jailed him for life.
Yeah.
Well,
and that is why that is why I always loved to see forks. As much as I hate the controversy around it and the market things that happen with price around the forks, I think they're important because that's where you get the variation and you get the actual competition. And it's hard to compete against Bitcoin, right? But the fact that you can demonstrate technology with a fork is a glorious achievement. That's an amazing thing for software that we have that now, and we aren't, in my opinion, utilizing it anywhere near what we should be doing.
Talking about open source and the importance of it and all, there's so many things that were theoretical in a short time ago that are now coming to fruition, and we're seeing it in real life in this fight now that's starting. This is one of the greatest posts that I saw. Pompliano posted it this week. So I don't know if y'all saw it, but the Canadian IRS or CIA or IRCA or whatever they got, they put out a memorandum, sent a letter to this wallet company. It's like, hey, we've identified these people. We need you to get their information and freeze these accounts. Like where the government do it, snap their finger. And they sent back a letter to them that was the greatest thing ever. It was dear IRS, CIA, we're just a software company, dude. We're not a financial institution, and it's all open source. We don't have any information to collect, not like we would if we did. We wouldn't give it to you, but we don't. We're just an open source. Anyone has access to it. But whenever the Canadian dollar does go to zero and the financial system collapse, we'll definitely be here to help you out and take care of you guys.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was talking about, because it wasn't this tweet, but it was the same letter, was retweeted by Ted Cruz. That's why the normies who all this time have only been seeing number go up. Oh, Bitcoin people got rich, but it's scary to me. This all of a sudden becomes, it's like, gosh, I drive a truck, or I'm a normal person who might someday be in that situation. And this is why Bitcoin exists, literally. And this was like, boom, the big eye-opening moment that happened to happen in Canada, which was great because it's so close. Everybody understands, Canadians are polite, yet they're getting their freaking accounts frozen.
Yeah, this is why layer ones exist.
I've seen so many light bulb moments with friends, because they're like, oh my God, this is terrible, this is awful. The banks and people's money, and they can't buy food and take care of their family, and they didn't really do anything. They're like, but what can we do? Yeah. And then it's just like, they can do whatever they want. I'm like, not if you use crypto.
Yeah, and that's why if you want price
they're
speculation,
all like, oh my God, I get it. You're right. I finally understand what the hell you've been talking about.
I think the gap in price speculation, the reason that you do not have Bitcoin at $1 million or 10 million, literally, is primarily communication. The fact that we had not been able to get this communication out into the minds of the normal people out there, number one. And number two, the stupid internal BS that wasn't just engineering focused. There was a lot of manipulation by moneyed powers with the whole Bitcoin world and everything we've seen since. And that's why Bitcoin is only in the tens of thousands of dollars, because it's absurd that it is not radically higher.
That's been
capability. How much are the freaking banks worth? Right?
Yeah. The
So-
messaging has been my issue too, because with DIN we're trying to design something that is specifically for regular people, and so
Right.
a lot of the trial and error that I do is presenting something, getting feedback about why they're not going to accept it. They're not going to try it. They don't care. They don't want that kind of thing. I have to have an app. I don't want to download an app. It's herding cats, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you wanna take the first
Yes.
question?
First question. Sorry.
All
We
right.
keep going to that. What solutions already exist or are possible to scale layer 1?
If I can, I'll start. I got something small to say about it to start it off. We were talking about this. I just said this is why layer 1 blockchains exist, that kind of thing. One of the things I was thinking as a way to scale up, you have trade-offs. You could scale up a layer 1 by making it less decentralized, right? So you can take away features if that's the one feature that you're really concerned about, and you're less concerned about the decentralization. So I think depending on the goals, there's going to be different options for you.
Yep. I mean, probably the biggest one would be Lightning, right?
Yep. The key to layer 1 to me though is that this is probably the point at which the original ideals of it matter the most, right? Because if you can have have a system that at the very bottom is very, very secure and very, very censorship resistant. Anything that ties its outputs to that system is going to also be able to inherit that security, right? Which is a lot of the basis for some of the scaling solutions that involve multiple chains or side systems, or like order books that were offline. Like one of the first things we worked on as a company was an offline order book based on microservices architecture that people could use, to get 0x formatted orders they could commit. But ultimately, it was only trustworthy because it was connected to the blockchain in its output.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I will tell you, so you have Lightning. I don't know. There are a lot of different Ethereum ones, right? And a lot of that, it's kind of a messy
There's
world.
even different Lightning networks too.
Right. It's kind of a messy world because there are a lot of and that's fine. I want to get to the next question because I think I can answer this question with the next question. But anyway, do we have what examples in Ethereum would you guys state would be the biggest?
I think one of the easiest ways to conceptualize all of them, because they're all kind of different flavors of the same idea. You have optimistic rollups, you have ZK rollups, you have all of these different types of sort of state channel type solutions. And then you have additional blockchains that have outputs that commit back down to the main chain, right? Through some kind of bridge functionality where like you write a smart contract on Ethereum, and the last thing that your new blockchain does every time it executes a transaction is send a signal to Ethereum that interprets that smart contract and does something to enter proof that something occurred over here.
Mm-hmm.
That's like sidechain stuff, doing it on a layer 2.
Yeah, that's more what we do.
Layer 2, right? Yeah, layer 2 would be sort of the prototypical case, but there's lots of ways to do it, right?
Yeah.
Well, Ethereum's trying to speed up by going proof of stake, that kind of thing, changing the base layer itself, changing that.
There are two things, like say the ZK rollups. There's some interesting missing options, in my opinion, that out there that like say people get very, and it's super cool tech, ZK rollups, some of the other variations, but my issue has always been that it's not air gapped, that I don't trust unknown unknowns about advanced and new crypto algorithms, that you just don't know what's broken until it breaks.
And I think the key to thinking about these things is to think about the way that something like No Man's Sky works with procedural generation. Like anytime you fly into a new universe in No Man's Sky, like a new star system, it takes this seed and it generates automatically, based on some prerequisites, a whole universe or a whole planetary system with different planets and different life forms and whatnot. If you take the thing that gets committed back to a layer 1 in any of these scaling solutions and play it back, you can multiply that and discover what was essentially the contents of some larger set of transactions in the state channel or on an L2.
Yeah. That's
roughly the idea, is that you can bundle a whole bunch of stuff into something that can be committed into a single transaction on layer 1.
And if Hello Games doesn't do it, somebody's going to. But that, literally the same game, but hyper NFTization, everything that is in that universe is dynamically generated on the fly. Even the developers don't know what it's going to look like, that kind of thing.
Yep.
That is so primed to be like, it's just already built for blockchain. It's already built for owning what even owning the discovery. You don't have to like take it out of, and make it, sell this animal that you found on, whatever. But a discovery, it's a metaverse, right? It's a metaverse before it's on blockchain. That whole game.
A sufficiently fast blockchain would be able to track everything that happens in those in terms of minting tokens to represent the relationships between things that people create.
And there's the gap. There's why I get so fed up with so much of this stuff, that we did this whole thing in 2014. We called out the fact that you need what they're now calling a layer 2. We called out that this is a way to actually feasibly do what you guys are describing. We could do millions of transactions. We could do financial networks. We could do telco networks. We could do gaming systems, and you still get the proof all the way to Bitcoin and Ethereum and any other change you wanted to add. And you can also have other types of contextual verification. And we did that from a very philosophical angle, and then we implemented it, and then we refactored it, and I think we've rebuilt the system like 4 times, because the first implementation we went out without full knowledge. But the point is, you go back to the white paper, and I still believe all those concepts. There are a couple of things that we've added conceptually, but the issue has been dogmatism and the fact that, that's not ours, so it sucks. And to get past that it's just ridiculous.
That's a really, Joe, that's a great point. One thing we do at Rivet, we start with, is nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Every great concept of computer science already invented a long time ago, like surprisingly a long time ago. Like the scaling solution we use to make Rivet, there's another side to blockchain scaling, which is, how about your node infrastructure? Can you support, billions of requests that aren't necessarily causing transactions, but are in fact seeking information from the network without causing the thing to fall over? And we used a concept called streaming replication to solve that problem with Rivet. And it was a concept that was invented in the 70s. It's the idea that you could use a streaming set of channel subscriptions to feed multiple copies of the same database.
Yeah. Well, that's
jumping on both your points, Joe. When it comes to dogma, that's really literally throughout history. What has really slowed down the evolution of mankind, and definitely in technology. But also to what Dave was saying, when you were talking about everything's an NFT and how much that has changed, literally overnight you've turned a seemingly given value to a world of worthless crap that only had meaning to one person. One person spent, tons of their hard-earned money in a game to buy these things, which they really used and loved, but all of a sudden they've outgrown them. And now they're worthless. The work they put into it, the work that they put in to earn the money to buy it, it's just all burnt. It's all gone. Whereas now you've given value to it to where they can exchange that with someone else and recoup some of that, or even make money on it.
That's what how I like to
show it
frame.
off in a provable way.
It's a huge change. And with the dogma, which you were talking about, is just so ridiculous. But I think people are waking up to the fact that everything doesn't have to be a layer 1. That literally is almost like a religious cult.
Yeah, it is dependent. If you want it to be perfect, it's not going to ever happen, and that's the whole point.
The invention of the wheel was great. Hey, we have a wheel. We can use this wheel. We have a unicycle. We can get around. We can do this. Wait a minute. What if we had 2 wheels and we put it on a little box? Or hold on, 3 or 4 wheels, and we put it on a box.
But it's still a
What are
wheel.
you, crazy? That's blasphemy. It's the one wheel, man. We're gonna do one wheel, and everything has to be done on this one wheel. And that's, I think, what people do when they look at it has to be on layer one.
Well, I was hinting at this when I
The
said
person who
earlier,
added
I was
tank
hoping
treads, man, that guy had to fight an uphill battle.
somebody would talk about Solana, because I'm curious what you think about the design choices of Solana to make it faster, cheaper. Because the question's about layer one scaling, right?
Can we go to the next question, because that hits
Sure.
that exactly.
Okay,
that's
cool.
exactly what that's about. So from Jacob Wayne, are most layer one blockchains built knowing that layer two solutions will be created to improve in scalability and such on the level one or layer one? Or I assume that nowadays it's known, but was wondering if earlier blockchains allowed for this, or if layer two was forced on them. You should go ahead and ask that, because I haven't
Yeah, I was wondering, because Solana's hot right now. Solana's got a lot of investors oogling over there and stuff, because they've claimed to solve a lot of problems that are affecting people that want to buy a JPEG on Ethereum. And so there's a lot of stuff going on there, and a lot of people using it. Phantom Wallet's actually pretty good. I used it recently and kind of liked it. But Solana also has a lot of, you got to press the reset button stuff apparently going on still, or did until maybe a month ago. So I don't
imagine
know
if they were the
know
only
what you
solution
thought.
out there that did this. Would they be allowed to stay in business? Would government shut them down immediately if the first blockchain was Solana?
Well, this is the
Because they could,
centralization
is the
question I
problem.
had, I guess, about the whole thing, about their
Yeah,
blockchain.
and
You assholes are going to make me be dogmatic now. I'm mad at you for this, actually.
Oh, I want to hear this. Okay.
Because I don't like Solana, dude. I really don't. And I don't like the fact that like we found out that they had this backdoor that they could turn everything off. I don't like the fact that we really found out that there was this centralization to the project. And I think to answer the question, yes, a lot of projects that are coming out, they are kind of using that, in my opinion, as a crutch. And in the industry, it definitely can be used for nefarious purposes. You can put out a project, and then you can say, we're going to fix this with a layer 2. We'll do this with a layer 2. But look at this great idea. Give us money. And which is we saw in the ICO craze, where you just had to put out, an idea, and you got a couple $100 million, whether it was real or not.
That's moved to VC world now. That's all that. That's the pattern that it just moved to VC
and
world.
I think it gives. It definitely gives scammers a really good arsenal in their tool belt, and lazy developers to say, oh, we'll just fix that in the layer 2 solution. We don't need to really talk about that now. So I know that you're going to get on me because you're, engineers, but I don't like it. I don't like that Solana has done what they've done. Me and just a couple other people are really the only ones that talked about this decentralization. And I've been part of projects where, it's like, oh, we're going to be 100% decentralized later. And I've gotten out because, I found stuff out. Me and other people found out, hey, man, you're doing this. You're putting money through your own wallet. You're whoa, this is not okay. So I think it creates a bad environment when it comes to
I'll clarify one thing I said too at the end of that, because I said I like the Phantom Wallet. I think that the Phantom Wallet that integrates with Solana is fantastic. Solana itself, I've never had a reason except once when a person that I know personally was like, I got art, you want to buy some? And I had to support my friend go figure out Solana. So I don't use them for the reasons that that you mentioned, and for I don't know, just my use case. I don't have a reason.
Well, to me, there's two problems with Solana. One is if they were the only blockchain on the face of the planet, and Canada went down and they were a Canadian company, you could damn well bet that letter would reach the people who could turn it off, and that they would turn it off.
We want you to freeze those NFTs.
Right.
Sorry.
Exactly. That could happen. But the other piece of it that's interesting to me is the voices it's crowding out by existing. Right. I just got back from East Denver, so I sound a little raspy because I picked up a bug. I'm hoping it's the Common Cove, because that way at least I'll be safe. But there's like Cello Wallet, for instance. They're out there. They're doing things legit. Like it's not completely shut downable by the people who created it. Polygon. Like there's so many different groups out there doing something that threads that needle properly. That, you know, being obsessed with Solana is actually kind of getting in the way of people learning that there are things that get to where they want to go without the.
But
it's still the tribalism. Can you bring the question back up, because I think this is an amazing question, because I had never thought about this. We at Dragonchain, our whole strategy for the level 5, our level 5, which is where we send the proofs ultimately. So effectively, you get this transaction that is your own business data. It could be private data. It could be it could be data that is regulated, that you can't expose as a company. That goes onto your own blockchain. You have your own blockchain. You control the data. Oh, it's centralized. That's horrible. It then goes very quickly, within 10 or 15 seconds, to get 2,000 nodes in a network verifications, right? And of different business contexts, and even some custom ones. But ultimately, it goes to a multiple level 5 blockchains where, Bitcoin was the first one we added at Disney, no less. I actually got Disney to let us run a full node, right? A Bitcoin node. And when we left Disney, we added Ethereum, because Disney, in fact, Ethereum came out when I was still there, and I was stupid and didn't have the time to get involved early in Ethereum. But either way, the crazy thing is our strategy as it developed was, what this is, if Ethereum in the early days, it's like, who knows? It could fall over. It could do various things. Ethereum Classic, especially, it did fall over multiple times with relatively cheap 51% attacks that were.
My team actually helped fix that.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, we were in on the meth solution design.
That's cool. So our purpose, though, philosophically, was variety. Why? Because you need algorithmic variety with that proof level, because nobody knows what will happen in the future. And one of these networks could be compromised. One of them could have a massive failure. It could be an EMP. Who knows? But some of the others won't. And as long as we have something there to point to where we can measure the amount of proof, that's what we want, right? And so our initial strategy was to try to get as many as we could, and we found out that maintaining them was horrible. And we found out a lot about some networks that surprised us and scared the crap out of us. Neo at the time, we had a Neo level 5 node running, and we found out that I think there were only 7 or 9 other nodes in the world at the time. Nobody seemed to give a shit back then about that. Right. And I think most of them were Chinese. And we're like, wait, what? And every time that they had a release, our node would break, and we would have to ping the developers who weren't first language English and ask them, it's like, what the hell? This is broken now. And they tell us, oh, you need this key. They would send us, they had no intention that other people would be running this, right? So you think about that. And, that was years ago. That would have been 2018, probably, I think. And so, we dropped Neo after a while. We had Binance Chain. It was the same, very similar before the Binance Smart Chain. The original Binance Chain was very similar, very centralized, all Chinese. We ran it because it was an interesting chain. And I think because, the fees were another factor. Okay, we can just throw that up there and just see how it works. Wasn't a big deal. But the crazy thing is, none of those, and I don't think any today, are actually focusing on a non-utility case, security only. Imagine if Bitcoin didn't have cash. They don't care about that. All they are doing is trying to increase the amount of measurable proof put in, and you can use this for anything. That would be an interesting thing that doesn't exist today. And this question points directly to it, that if you said, we're just going to assume that we're going to be the most powerful, strongest network, whether it's by proof of work, proof of stake, or combination, or any other algorithms, and we're going to have the biggest network, and then all these layer 2s can use us for their proof layer. That doesn't exist because everybody's been flipped the other way, that they think, oh, we have to have cash, we have to build something for NFTs, we have to build something as a world computer smart contract machine that can do all of these things, when we know it can't scale doing all those things. So effectively, that's my theory, that Bitcoin will convert to become either a foolproof network or something will be there for that, because that is the natural way of things. That you don't need something that's radically scalable when you're trying to get the biggest proof. What you need is the biggest proof. You don't need it to be scalable. So you would, assume that you're going to have roll-ups, and you're going to assume that people are not going to be dogmatic in the future.
Right.
Use this for what it could really be used for.
Yeah, I think it's dying, just like any kind of dogma, But we have to go through the Middle Ages. We have to go through the witch trials.
There's probably ultimately,
before we get to
the
Enlightenment.
God,
there's probably ultimately a time, though, guys, that our actual hardware, the metal that we run our computer programs on, becomes sufficiently performant that we could have a high throughput layer 1 and just have it by itself. But we're a long way off from that. I mean, probably not as far off as we think, because
I think
Moore's law type scaling happens, but we are on the cusp of a new computing paradigm, ultimately, because we can't make
by the way,
the nanometer processes much smaller.
Speaking of that, I mean, that's an interesting thing, because when you get into that and randomness and the fact that if you and I can agree to that, okay, we're going to both let's say it's a game. We're going to both put in place our actions, right? Let's say it's a game worth a lot of money. It's something that we don't trust each other. We don't know each other. We're going to put our actions in place on chain, and we're going to wait for a future event, which is something that would cost us hundreds of millions of dollars to affect. And we can only affect it. We still can't choose what that block hash is going to be coming on whatever network this is. That's an amazing thing that people still don't get. And we've been trying to push that at Dragonchain for a while. We're working on stuff still, but to me, that is a beautiful application of the technology. And effectively, you can use Bitcoin as that block hash. You can use Ethereum as the block hash. You can use combined. You can do all types of crazy things.
Right.
But it means that we can trust each other when we would have no other way to do so, right?
I don't know if
it
you
also
know
lets
this.
you use properties of state to generate new state. Which
Well, the
can
thing
be
is, you
done
have
in
to
a way
you don't
that's
have to trust each other, but
completely-
you have to trust the blockchain that you're using. You have to trust the code.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you know this, but what Joe just
and it can
described,
surprise you, which is neat.
what Joe just described is a roadblock, even to people that are engineering the stuff. Sometimes is a roadblock for it's an oh shit moment when you get it's not about. I've had so many conversations with people that are fanatic about Bitcoin, who refuse to talk about anything other than money, right? So talking about converting Bitcoin into a proof system and removing the token, the coin from it, it's like a lot of people don't understand that it's not about the coin, right? The coin is valuable because of the network. It's not about the token. It's not about money all the time. And the idea that you can use any of these blockchains and tokenized systems for something other than the token or the coin or storing your money or getting rich or whatever is a blockade. It's a barrier that so many people haven't gotten past to see what else you can do.
It's just a functional
with this
fixedness failure, right?
Yep.
It's the fallacy of functional fixedness. You get this idea in your mind of the digital objects created by these immutable ledgers as tokens or coins, and you're stuck when they could be anything. We could call them butterflies.
Yeah. And if you're talking to the regulators, that it's a really hard conversation, because it's like me trying to talk to an executive at Goldman Sachs or something, that I'm not going to be able to speak in the same language typically. And the fact that, I mean, this, and on an engineering level, the interesting thing for me about randomness and how we use it is that you could make the case totally that, well, the Bitcoin and Ethereum blockchain block hashes are absolutely not random. There is no randomness. Comparing it to an atomic clock where we do have randomness, but the problem is I can't use the randomness because you can't trust that I'm not fixing it. And
it's too random in the sense that it has to comport with a structure, and because that structure is limiting.
Yeah,
This
and that's
impact has to be valid.
You have to have the holistic picture, because the token price, the network effect, any measures you can have on a network, and there are various objective ways to measure the size and quality of a network. You have that, and then you have the token price, and then you have things like the reason I love proof of work is because you actually can measure, even if it's a very conservative estimate, you can measure the actual energy value that went into producing that block, which means I can put a dollar figure on something and say, okay, in the most conservative measure, it's probably more than this, but at least I'm looking at $8 million worth of cost to try to affect it. And it would cost a lot more than that, because you'd have to do a lot more than just, send a few transactions at that block, and try to affect the hash, and basically block out of it. You'd have to do some pretty massive things to attack one of those networks, let alone a combination. And when you can put that number on something, it all of a sudden becomes, okay, this is a move in a game that might be worth $1 million, but I know that each move, it would cost you 10 million or whatever to affect it. I can trust, if that's the word, that system. It's more measurement than trust, I think, but I can live with it.
People have to stop thinking in binary terms. You're not gonna. It's not a matter of whether you can fully trust it or not. It's how much can you trust it, and is that enough for what your purpose is? Is it enough for
when you
you?
look at it's seeing the value of the network versus the value of the coin. If you remove the coin from it, it's weird to think of, but like someone 100 years ago, or even further, but go back to someone like in the 1800s, they would have a better grasp and understand that than someone today. If you look at someone today, they look at cash as something that has value. That's something, but there's nothing backing it. There's no underlying network. You could say. There's literally one node, a central bank that prints it. But someone a long time ago, they said, this piece of paper has value because it's connected to a bunch of gold sitting in the treasury.
Not at first. People were like, "What is this?"
Yeah, but you understand what I'm saying. It's there's something that I trust that is going to give me real value. It's not that I just trust it and that this has value because they say so, but this has value because I trust that people will give me something of real value if I want it. This is just a representation. And they got it back then. Nowadays, no one would understand that whatsoever. And that's why I think people have trouble looking at the network value and the technological value versus money go up.
Yeah, well, but it's always been kind of like that, right? Like it's always been the systems surrounding it. Like when you're talking about being able to exchange a banknote for some actual gold, like actual gold in and of itself, if you look back far enough, was probably just some guy, with a club and his pet dinosaur going, "Ooh, shiny stone," right? Like ultimately,
I like the ancient aliens explanation of that.
You know it.
Ultimately, we're just arbitrarily valuing everything, and it's the systems we set up around that value that really reinforces it.
Can I mention too something that's related, and it's not the fungible value like a stock necessarily, but I guess it could be. I mean, with NFTs, but in particular DAOs, I've seen a lot more people talking about that this could represent a change in the way that we understand corporations. That if a corporation had governance direct based upon rules that are more transparent and open, that they will be more successful because they'll be tuned by wisdom of the crowd. It's going to be totally different world. And the fact that it's potentially, if well modeled, it's very decentralized. That's a radical departure, even though it's not. It's the pattern is very similar, but the actual way it works is noticeably different. So.
Right, Friedrich Hayek's idea that a big job of the economist, or the key job of the economist, is to explain to people who think that they can design systems that manage all the complexities of economic transaction, right? That they know way less than they do.
Yeah.
And the way that we need to be designing these things, and the way that we can allocate trust in a way that points us in the right direction, is does this system rely on experts in a way that if they are wrong, it will fall apart?
Yeah.
And if the answer to that is no, then you can probably trust it.
It's a good
If the
question.
answer to
For a
that
lot
is
of
yes,
things
then
in
you
life.
need to take a big fat step back.
Yeah. And that's why I'll say, philosophically, I think part of the solution is the behavior. And I talk about behavior all the damn time, so apologies there. But it's the fact that if you flip it and you say, though all of those economic interactions are directly part of the governance, because if I hold a token, I get governance and I get value and I get I get ownership of some type and utility, which is a very unique, different thing about this world that with a share of stock, I don't really have utility. I mean, maybe maybe I get a discount on the car I'm buying or something, but that's typically not even legal, right? That there are various weird things like that. But anyway, I don't know. It's pretty cool stuff. So do you want to do one more question? We have.
Yeah, you want to talk about the
I think
difference between proof of stake, proof of work?
too, because
Okay.
last one's a good one too.
Proof of stake,
They're
proof of
maybe
stake
related,
versus
yeah.
proof of work. I see them all as it's just a different algorithm. I want more variety. In fact, I want various types of proof of stake. I want to apply time. I want to do other behavioral things. Proof of work obviously has a very easily, it's not easy, but a very measurable quality to it, and a very powerful quality to it. That it would cost you a tremendous amount of money unless you hold your plans on that fusion reactor, which is a danger to Bitcoin. That theoretically a nation state could build a fusion reactor and destroy Bitcoin. Why? Because they have more power, right?
I mean,
Right, it's
volcanoes.
true. You could crank that up unlimitedly, I suppose. I hadn't even thought about that. That's a 51% attack by
One
free
machine.
energy.
It'd be cheap power, right? You could do it. You'd still need the hardware. You'd still have to scale up. Same with volcanoes. It's free, but it's not free because you'd have to.
That's one of the reasons.
I would say proof of stake is less secure in one way, at least in a naive implementation of it. If you wanted to, with stakers, coordinate a mass conspiracy to distort the network, it would be a lot easier than with miners, because you could wait and execute your plan all at once, knowing that all you would be doing would be betraying your stake. Whereas with proof of work, there's no telling which miner or which transaction is going to get mined. So you can't coordinate a single simultaneous act of collusion.
Yeah, Greg. So what's the difference between manipulating a proof of stake community versus manipulating a DAO through traditional means?
Well, it's true. There's not.
Is a
I mean,
DAO a
it's
proof
not
of
a
stake?
huge. It's not a huge.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Just an attack vector that I could think of.
We have an article coming out that hits that exact thing. That basically it's about the potential for DAOs to be attacked, and that if you use behavior, which by the way, I mean the Dragonchain
we've seen it happen once already.
Yeah, the Dragonchain patents on scalability is literally the use of time to counter the potential. We also have structural approaches with, you'd have to do a 51% attack on every layer, and some of them are permissioned layers. And the other is behavior, and that particularly with DAOs, like with DIN. With DIN, we're specifically modeling part of the vote. A major proportion of the vote is based upon users' behavior. That you have the liquidity in there. So if you provide liquidity and walk away, you could attack the system with liquidity. But guess what? You're going to have to also come in and take part and get some behavior, because the people who are doing the things in DIN, contributing to it philosophically and or with the business goals of DIN, have a huge portion of that governance vote. So
yep. And ultimately, there's nothing that is perfectly secure, right? There are attack surfaces on everything that is public, and ultimately you can take it down. But like with DAOs, I think we saw with ENS that one of the major risks was having a foundation that can overrule the DAO.
Yeah.
In circumstances that they consider urgent. I mean, it's similar to Trudeau's emergency powers execution. Right? We were going to take away this system of governance just temporarily because we deem the circumstance necessary for that to happen. is antithetical to the notion of decentralized governance and should not be built into systems.
Yep.
Ultimately, we are striving towards a goal of fewer places where someone with a thuggish attitude and a full clip could influence the outcome of a governance decision.
I know it's probably going to bother Greg, but Mr. Dow. But the more I think about it, wouldn't the fact that manipulating a DAO be so much easier because it literally is a group of kind of like-minded individuals, so they would be easier to focus. I mean, you don't have, when it comes to most DAOs, they're not really a robust group of people. They're people that come together for a common kind of goal.
I think it depends on what that goal is.
A really great DAO design probably seeks dissonance.
Well, that's why, like Joe was saying, on DIN we have just recently implemented behavioral what's the word?
Based governance? I don't know.
Yeah, behavioral-based governance.
Right.
So we measure on-chain these data points, but we do not tokenize them. So nobody can come in and buy those and acquire that control. You would have to come in and be a good actor for a long time to get that kind of weight to vote. So that is something that protects against that. And not to drag on, because I know we're going up at the end of the show here, I wanted to say that, to put it simply, not all proof of work is the same or equal, and or as valuable, and not all proof of stake is built equally. I think my favorite implementation of proof of stake, just because of how fairly distributed it is the Divi project. Now, I don't know how long that's going to remain, but it's always impressed me the way that it was, at least every time I've looked at it, it's been one of the most decentralized proof of stake networks of any of them. There is an issue of somebody who has patience and money. We underestimate how much money people are willing to spend to crush a competitor or something that they don't want to exist in the world.
Yeah.
So,
Dave, on that, I have a bit of a bone. Their lottery.
Yes.
I
know I'm very familiar with the lottery.
Yeah, that just
extremely familiar.
That just pays the richest people. It just pays the richest. So, the same person has won that like 9 times. It gives it's only for the biggest wallets. And I was one of them. I had 2 gold nodes.
Yeah.
Way back in the early days.
Yeah.
So, and I still didn't win because there's people that had $9-10 million that got in and that's it. They got the most lottery tickets.
I don't know. I know
the most money.
I know they were talking about, and I told you, and I'll talk about Divi because I'm not personally invested at the moment. I used to be heavily invested. I probably will in the future, but right now I needed some money for a project, so I liquidated my node. It was just a business decision, and so I will say though I won the lottery quite a bit, and it is a matter of So Divi, I love Divi because they're for every person. You know what I mean? It's the crypto made easy, the simplicity, that kind of thing. It really, that's kind of one of my missions in life, is to bring stuff to normal people and not just people who have spent 20 years learning how to use this shit. But what you're talking about is, if you have a system that's meant for normal people, you also have people using it that are able to dig in and see how things work, like the UTXO system in Divi, and how the lottery is chosen and things like that. And so what I did is I went in and figured out what the minimum UTXO size was, and I made all my UTXOs that size forever, right? So then I've got more lottery tickets, and this is what people do. I don't know if they've taken the time metric off of the coin. I think that was discussed. I don't know if that was ever followed up on. But if you look at the math, there's an incentive there for you to go in and restructure under the hood how your UTXOs are managed. And if
you can't have doing anything under the hood and be for regular people.
I know. So this is where you have,
that's where regular people are incentivized to actually learn how stuff works. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing, but
anybody can do that, and it's publicly talked about in the Divi community too. It's just that it's dangerous if you're following instructions where somebody says, put this into your thing and run this code and, that kind of thing.
Now, can I bring up the question of, and we can cut if you guys want, but the question of DAOs and manipulation and the fact that you might be a bubble. That's why I've always thought with projects, even if it's not crypto projects, that the philosophy needs to come first. You have to know literally and declare, these are our goals, right? Because when you show them to the devs, it means something when they are hard at work and here I'm implementing this thing. If I don't have top of mind those freaking goals, I might make a different, and even when you have them declared, sometimes, they get into their zone and they don't think about it. And then it comes out and they built something. You have to say, that's great, but that's not what we wanted. We have to have this, right? But then we had a lot of trouble with the devs trying to make it the next DeFi project. The next thing, it was purely crypto Ethereum. And that's all great and fine, but we have to make it so that Grandma Smith coming into Den can use it, and she doesn't care about the crypto until she realizes she has $1,000 there. Then all of a sudden you have an adoption, right? Then you're just like, oh, I can do this.
What I liked about that though,
learn it, right?
was that you did it the hard way first, the normal way, the hard way. Like this is the best we have at the moment. Everybody has to know how to use these tools and be happy with spending all this money. So we did that. Initially, that was like even voting on LCP required MetaMask, Ethereum, that kind of thing. But then, because we did it first that way, we were able to show and prove in practice you can do the same thing. Now let's bring these features into DragonNet, and you're literally doing the same thing, but now nobody has to waste all this cash.
Right, and to us it was a value leak. To me, it was okay. That customer's money could be spent on layers or on other things in this ecosystem.
Keep it local. Don't send that out to miners.
Ethereum.
Keep it local.
And it became a thing where we could look at adoption rate. It's like 99-something%. It doesn't make sense to spend $200 when I can spend nothing to do this exact same thing, right? So anyway,
and it's still proven
possible.
In the same way that Bitcoin, literally the same way that Bitcoin is proven.
Right. And Ethereum. I would say more so. That's why we
more
make
so.
the
I was
broad,
going to
crazy
say
claim.
that as a good enough statement. You know what I mean? But it is more so. Yeah.
Because we are, and you could call it a trick, you could call it a sleight of hand, but the fact that we are proving to Bitcoin and Ethereum right now, and we're going to add another maybe this week, that it is literally, measurably, objectively the most secure network on Earth. Now, different things and different how you call it out, but the fact that we're getting proof from all of them, and that was our intent from the beginning, is that's interesting. Sorry.
Something you learn in the military is that if it's like somebody might call that stupid, but if it's stupid and it works, it ain't stupid, man. Yeah. Like it works really, really well. You just didn't think of it, so it's stupid to you.
Yeah, that's engineering. It's a weird thing too when you get an engineer that can open-minded engineers, ones that are like, holy crap, I never thought of it that way, and can just jump right into it. It's like that's amazing without it being their own idea. That's beautiful. So okay, but no more questions. Or unless you guys want, what do you guys? I think
we should draw the last one in a lightning round.
Okay, all right. GP12X.
We can rattle off some proof of stakes.
I understand proof of work, proof of stake. What other consensus methods exist or could be implemented to prove layer one transactions? That's a really good question. So,
pass. I'll go last.
Okay, I'm going to go first. I'm going to say that if people could stake reputation, something like I'll lose all my Twitter followers if I don't validate this block.
You could say something about Augur. Did something with Rep that was
Rep,
yeah.
That's basically what Clubhouse did, isn't it? Where you had to, it was invite only, and if your people that you invited were bad actors, they got kicked out, and so did you.
Yep, but I would do it logocratically. I would have a randomly selected committee of validators that would stake their reputations at that moment. That's how I would do it.
That's good. I mean,
what about like a hash graph or
Possibly, yeah. I was just trying to come up with something weird on the fly.
What is theirs? Theirs is there a name for what they do?
There's a name. I can't remember what it is.
I'm blanking on it. Thanks.
Yeah.
So Hashgraph isn't necessarily a blockchain, but it performs that
Right, not a
function.
Yeah,
blockchain,
but
yeah.
it is. I mean, come on.
It is conceptually performing
Yeah.
the same action in the same way that,
So
like,
it,
I
and
like
it's
to
not really proof of stake or proof of work.
Yeah.
So you got that. There you go.
Yep.
I was
Jury
going to
duty,
say,
basically.
obviously proof of
According to
work,
Jim
proof of
Scola.
stake.
He nailed it.
There's also proof of identity. We called it the proof of human, proof of identity. That we had some applications. I'm not going to say where, but way back. This would be before you're open sourced, and we never finalized them because it was way too early. You can imagine, but it was effectively that you could have random individuals, and the main point is that let's say I'm in a big corporation, and that you have somebody who's buying tickets or somebody who's doing things. I'm doing something in my account. It could be an exchange where I'm buying or selling something. That an interesting verification is when I'm doing that, I have to sign with a key. Okay, yes, I do definitely want to purchase this item. That simultaneously, I'm getting a challenge that I have to sign, right? But this challenge isn't what would normally happen in traditional IT, where it would be a random UUID or something. That the challenge is literally a hash of other transactions that other people are doing. And so you basically have a real human doing something with a measurable amount of money or other action that is signing those other transactions. And some of that is you could call it I don't know what you call it, but it's a human-based thing. So it's the equivalent to the joke of back in the day where you could mine a Bitcoin block on paper, right? And there's a whole thing. There's a meme where they have some child labor going on somewhere in Asia because they're good at math, and that they're mining Bitcoin blocks in some factory. But anyway, it's
Oh my God,
the equivalent to
Joe.
that. It's just me saying I'm going to do this. I'm going to
Just gave
spend
me a
this money.
stupid
It's
idea.
signing something anyway.
Joe, you
So,
just gave me a stupid idea.
Okay,
What
let's hear
if we train an AI to generate valid looking hashes with the goal towards teaching it to generate valid blocks? Like, what if you could get an input of the last block and output what the most likely next block was from a neural network?
Well, you can see what
here's
the
the
most
thing.
likely block
Here's
is.
the thing.
That would be kind of
You guys
absurd.
know
By
the
looking
study
at
they
which
did
ones have higher fees,
where
right?
they gave I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was a genetic algorithm of circuits. So they would generate a whole population of circuits, and their goal that the fitness function was to generate like a sine wave or some specific type of wave. And most of them did whatever that they followed through what the scientists expected. But the ones the one that won or got there first was using an undocumented access to some RF from the circuit board itself, and it was actually getting radio waves and just using them directly and generating the waveform that it was supposed to generate. And they were like, they couldn't figure out how it came to that, but it was there, and it was
taking an input,
one of
and
the
it used
populations took it as an input, and boom, and so theoretically there could be
That's
some
fascinating as
unknown
fuck.
element, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's also that proof of humanity. If you can, like click on all the streetlights.
Yeah, and I was all of right.
True.
Are you not a bot? But the things that don't require interaction from a human, the things that are automated that keep a blockchain running. You look at, we talked about Divi, we talked about Ethereum, their proof of work going to proof of stake. JP12X was asking about what other stuff maybe exists now. If you look at stuff, if you look at proof of space and time, I consider that another version of proof of work. They're just using hard drives to do it, and more e-waste and less electricity. And there's that's Chia. They're cool. They got a great team. I like them a lot. There's, if you look at you can even combine things. I want to see one day. I want to see a proof of stake. Proof of stake with delegated proof of work. So you have projects using delegated proof of work now. If you look at what Pirate Chain is doing, you cannot. You mine them on their native chain, but then they also use Litecoin, and they have a delegated proof of work over on Litecoin just in case they get 51% attacked and things like that.
You can also do I don't know what the right semantics would use. We would call it it was merged. I think it was merged proof of stake, but it was basically much lower levels, like say very reasonable for energy efficiency to apply some level of proof of work to what would otherwise be either staked or trusted blockchain transaction, and it could it could effectively how do I say it? How do you describe it? It could roll over multiple blocks, so you wouldn't have to worry about the timing. The blocks could still be either fixed time. That's how we, there's it's probably removed now, but there's old code in Dragonchain that allowed you to put proof of work in your blockchain. But we found nobody cared. Nobody needed it because Bitcoin's already there. So anyway.
And then the last couple I was going to mention real quick was Dash sort of invented the DAO, kind of. Their masternode network, on top of their proof of work network, was like a DAO, you could say proof of stake, DAO structure on top of, a proof of work layer. And then, I forgot the other one that I was going to say. It's I don't know, but there's different stuff out there,
And philosophically, we have to know there will be others. There might be some that are way better than what we're using right now. So.
Yep. Well, I mean, and the really neat thing to me is you can have modifications on the existing algorithms, like with ETC when they got 51% attacked, they modified their consensus algorithm to essentially weight what it costs over time to sort of push a whole bunch of blocks back onto the network. It's called MESS, which is modified exponential scaling something or other. I forget exactly how that goes.
MESS.
That's cool.
Said meth.
Yeah,
Ethereum on meth.
Yeah,
I was like,
but
that was a
the
poor choice.
MESS solution made it exponentially more costly to fabricate lots and lots of blocks. And that modifies proof of work in a way that you don't have to have as much hashing power to have as much security, which is actually a pretty neat thing when you think about it.
I got visions of that Dave Chappelle character. He's like, y'all got any blockchain?
Sprinkle a little blockchain on it.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. So what's going on this week? Let's go with Sean first.
Got some interviews coming up. Be on Crypto Rewind tomorrow on Rice TVX at 7 Eastern. Hope everyone has a good week, and I hope the world goes back to one thing I want to hit on is that everyone is actually taking notice of this shit that Charles Schwab has said and the ramifications of it, which regular normal people caring about that is amazing of what he said at Davos. But, he said there is no normal. For people to think things are going to go back to the normal way that used to be is not happening. And I hope that we do, man. I hope we get back to a much calmer and freer society overall in the whole world this weekend.
Sean, I don't know when you're up for it again, but we gotta do another talk because I feel like this one bears digging into further.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right, Greg, what's going on this week?
All right, so we've got, by the way, there was modified exponential selective scoring. That was what I was trying to say about MESS earlier. That's what it stands for. Just wanted to add that. We've got Cardinal out in the real world. It's actually being used to power Open Relay or power Rivet at this moment, and we're rapidly approaching as fast as we can the implementation of Polygon as our next network. So from there it's going to be take the process, take the learnings from how we implemented Polygon, and move on to a lot more networks. So Rivet should be out there to support a lot of different things very soon. So that's kind of been what's going on in our world. ETH Denver was a blast. Had a great time seeing some people that I haven't seen in years face to face, and meeting some new people face to face for the first time. So if you guys are watching, hey, it was nice to see you. And that's pretty much me.
Cool. Dave.
Yeah, so Din's hot, man. I'm gonna bring this up. Din published this week an article about smart ballots and Din Social teaming up to offer what we have developed over the past I don't know, a couple of years, I guess, into sort of a turnkey DAO as a service offering. So we're going to be offering that to any existing DAO who wants to bring in normal non-techie people, which I think it's an untapped resource. It really is. Think about how many people align with your goals of your DAO, of your organization, even if it's not a DAO yet, that are not going to join a DAO because they don't know how to use MetaMask and they don't care about Web3. So this is a way to augment what you've got going on with normal people. And we can talk about how to do that if you're interested. Hit us up, make a Den account, chat with us, maybe under this article too in the reply section. So that's the latest thing going on there. And of course we have our governance call that we can talk about some more this afternoon if we want to as well. And anyone's welcome on that. So we are, I'm on a mission in Gainesville for hyper DAOification. I want to use this and apply it to, there's a lot of local groups that just do work for free and they can capture that and they can tokenize that. And maybe we'll get a second layer economy going. We'll see. That's what we're doing.
Nice.
You should start a DAO is going to be a historic phrase.
Yes.
Well, we already have DAOception because
Dude,
DAO
I
itself.
can see 20 years from now, statues around the world of Greg and placards underneath it. Just let's start it.
Yes. I mean, it's going to be important.
College kids can be wearing those Che Guevara shirts, but it'd be Greg.
Man,
just looking.
And
start it down.
Dragonchain updates. You'll be on the lookout. It depends upon the testing, but it's potential in the next couple of days. We'll have a new L5 out there for a new interchain to a different network that isn't announced yet. We should have a contest. Who's going to guess it? But let's see here. The other thing is that we have an article coming out about DAOs because we're really trying to push hard into solving some of the things that will make DAOs more usable. Because I think it's great if you get it into the hands of crypto people to buy things, and it's actually culturally a very good phenomena. But once you get it into the hands of just regular people, anything can happen, and it's gonna be small things and big things, right? But it's going to be anything that needs to actually happen that we've not been able to do, even though all of us know. Like, why are we going to war? Nobody wants to go to war. Yes.
And even something as small as your HOA that you detest, you can.
Yes.
You can
I want my lawn to be at a full 8.5 inches and whatever. Anyway, that's cool.
That's
so
what she said. Good, you're doubling down on DAOs.
All right. Anyway, we're going to sign off now, and let's see here. I think that I don't have anything else. Watch the. Do go to the Den governance call at noon Eastern, and that's right, noon Eastern. I think that's right.
It is the governance call is 3 p.m. Eastern.
3 p.m. Oh, it's noon Pacific,
your time.
It's 1 Eastern now.
I know worse. We need to all. By the way, we need to all just switch to UTC time or some other equivalent.
So the whole world should be on the same time. Like
yes, it's 1800 right now.
The sun is in the middle of the sky at 3.
We can say that it's 1800. Well, 1756 right now. We're way over.
It'll be a little bit, and then we'll have Earth Standard Time.
What was the one semi-famous statement about why Bitcoin would never work? Because something about Satoshi would never solve global time synchronization. So, which is why the block time thing was so brilliant, right? It's just like fuck time. We'll just make our own version of it. I mean, it'll be a very
doesn't really exist anyway.
Yeah.
And there are ways to there's some pretty neat protocols.
Replace clocks with blocks, and you're good to go.
I'm surprised that the NTP is NTP, right? Is that right? It's been so long. I used to set those up a lot. They typically use the U.S. Navy tick and talk servers. That's what I always set them to. But I've always been surprised that they haven't made that more decentralized. Given the new tech that you could develop a much more powerful and trustworthy and time protocol. Anyway,
sounds like a dope oracle.
Maybe my kids were watching an old movie last week, or it was a flashback to like an older part, and this guy's like, "Give me your watch," and they synchronized it, and I don't think they really knew what was going on. I was like, "That's like not even a thing anymore. No one synchronizes their watches."
Not until those EMPs go off, anyway. But anyway,
there's an interesting idea. Here's an interesting idea, guys. What if we just started our own time zone? Right now, everybody sets their clocks to noon at this moment, and it's noon our time.
And the problem is adjustments. All the leap
then I gotta go back.
seconds. Oh, it's just.
I got to
Oh
go
my
back
gosh.
outside though to real like other life that has that
I-
time zone. So
I will tell you,
Keep it as a separate.
how exciting it was for me in, I think it was in 2000, where that I think it, and I'm getting this wrong. It's been too long, but like every 100 years, the leap year doesn't happen, which is awesome. But in 2000s, it might be every 1,000. There's probably not every 1,000 years. The leap year that normally wouldn't happen does happen, or vice versa. Anyway, it's just a crazy cool thing that I'm trying to explain it to kids. Well, normally this should be that, but it isn't because of this. It's kind of cool. Anyway.
Oh yeah, no, it's like the 7 segment. The other day we had 2202.
Yes.
2022, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Love that one.
Yeah. Now we have war. I blame it on the numerologists. Anyway, so make sure you share this episode. The more you share, the more all the hosts and the topic contributors, which all of you that add, we got through all the questions. It's amazing. Took us 2 hours, but we got through all of them. And anyway, so we'll all get a lot there. Make sure you share it, like, comment, subscribe, all the things that YouTube and Twitter and wherever else you're watching it would pay attention to, however that works. So
yeah, thanks for staying
so
over,
much.
everybody. Long episode.
Yeah, that was great. It's awesome. So
Sure.
America's not the government, people. The America is you. It is the Grand fucking Canyon, the Rocky Mountains, the deserts of the Southwest, the Pacific fucking Ocean, the Atlantic fucking Ocean. It is the grandest continent. And what the fuck have you people done? You have turned yourself into sheep, every goddamn one of you.